Here, and welcome to those that are joining us in the audience or those watching from home. Item number 3 on our agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a silent prayer in lieu of invocation. I invite you to please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 4 on our agenda is the reading of the minutes of the previous regular council meeting on December 19, 2017. Council members, what are your wishes regarding that item? Got a motion to approve by Koth. And is there a second? Second by Kellogg. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no request to speak, please cast your ballots. The motion is to approve.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 5 on our agenda this evening is an explanation of the visitor speaking procedure. Individuals wishing to address the body may do so after being recognized by a council member, in which they'll be invited to the podium and be allowed to speak for no longer than 5 minutes on an agenda item appearing before us this evening. Item number 6 is my report. Good evening, council members, staff, and those here or watching from home. The Mayor's Youth Council is working on its next steps in the zoo project and master planning project, and will be administering a survey to the community and preparing to present to the Park and Rec Commission next month. At their meeting this month, they were introduced to the upcoming changes to the bike share program and how they can get involved to help launch these positive changes in our community. Their focus next month will be to continue their efforts in aquatics fundraising and messaging out in the community. The Beautification Council is working on their annual Bird City application, which the resolution will be in front of you next month. The group also has plans to meet with city staff and give input on the streetscape incorporated into the 2019 reconstruction of East Grand Avenue. Additionally, the planning is again underway for the Summer Hanging Basket Program, which solicits 60-plus donors each year. On the aquatic park development, council members, as you know, through attending the recent update that we had just last week, we'll have a shovel-ready project with design and construction docs completed shortly after March 1st. The question remains if the project will have the major gifts and pledges totaling $5 million to move into construction. We're also working with MSA on an alternative schedule that would allow for more time for fundraising while still providing for a summer 2019 project opening. On the Planning Commission, I want to thank you to the council members for attending last night's zoning code discussion. I felt the discussion was productive, and I look forward to the next steps with the Planning Commission potentially slated to meet in mid-February and a public open house to occur shortly thereafter for the community to weigh in on the proposed changes, actually to the new zoning code that has been under drafting for about 2 years. The East Riverbank Recreational Trail update is that the project bid documents have now been published for prospective bidders to take a look at. Bids will be open on the 6th of February, and so at that point we'll decide and determine the extent of which we've got resources to fund first phase improvements with design still underway for consecutive future phases. Administratively, I conducted performance discussions with city management staff and actually wrapped them up today. The notable mention is that they were conducted less on a ranking or rating system, more with a discussion style that included a review of 2017 accomplishments, personal challenges and opportunities for improvement, and goals for 2018 were discussed and set. Work continues on a refreshed city website and smartphone app, one that is much more user-friendly, modern, and responsive. We hope to have something launched yet this spring if all goes well. Also tonight on our council agenda, under 7 new business, item E, in which I'm pleased to present Dawn Urban as my appointment as HR Director with the city. Dawn comes to the city with a wealth of human resource experience, with her most recent as HR Business Partner and Associate Director at Marshfield Clinic Information Systems. In her position, she created and implemented an HR roadmap, introduced a real-time feedback process, developed retention strategies to reduce turnover, and developed and led a leadership development program in her tenure there. Dawn holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree and a Professional Human Resource certification. I also want to conclude by thanking our city attorney for providing leadership and much attention to the variety of HR tasks and responsibilities during the director vacancy. I know it wasn't always easy, and it wasn't necessarily what you signed up for in running for office here as city attorney, and I know it required additional time in addition to performing your regular city attorney duties, so thank you for that. And finally, proclamations. Issued a proclamation for beginning next Monday, the 22nd, I believe, School Choice Week, in support of raising awareness of the need for effective educational options for our community. And that concludes my report. Catch me tomorrow morning again in WFHR, where I'll be taking listeners' calls on the radio show at 10 a.m. Item number 7, new business. Item A is consider an ordinance amending section 27.13, parent 1, parent D of the municipal code, modifying the location of the taxi cab pickup and delivery on West Grand Avenue at First Street South, as recommended by the Public Works Committee meeting on January 2nd, 2018. The ordinance is a correction to recently adopted Municipal Code 1237, and the ordinance is attached in attachment number 2. Alderpersons, what are your wishes regarding that item? We have a motion to approve by Rayom, a second by Koth. Are there any requests to speak? Seeing no requests to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Item 7B is a first reading of an ordinance amending certain sections of 1.14 of the municipal code regarding the temporary residential sale of agricultural products. See the ordinance attachment number 3 in your packets. Are there any requests to speak? Or otherwise, the floor is open. Alderperson Koth, you're first.
We had an individual in the audience that wanted to address the council on this issue. I'll yield time to him.
All right. Please go up to the podium and make sure the microphone is on, which will be indicated by a green light. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. I was here at the last 2017 meeting in December in regards to this amendment to the temporary use ordinance. I just wanted to reach out when it comes to voting on this. I'd like you guys to consider that the farmers market is only available Thursdays and Saturdays. What this town should be striving for, what the city should be striving for, is local, on-demand, locally sourced, locally grown produce when residents want the produce. I myself would rather go to a local farmer to purchase produce as opposed to a big box store, Walmart, Home Depot. And really, other than Thursday and Saturday during the growing season, those are my only options, are the big box stores, unfortunately, because we don't have this ordinance accepted already. That's really all I had, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any requests to speak?
I'll make a motion for adoption of the ordinance,
We have a
or the
motion.
change, rather.
We have a motion by Zerflu. Is there a second? A second by Hepp. We'll move into discussion. Alderperson Ferkey, you're first.
So with this adoption, the reason we at the Planning Commission had an issue with this particular ordinance was the safety of the public with stopped traffic on this particular location was on Baker Drive. And I feel that there will be other instances where safety issues will come up. So I would certainly like to make sure that is on the record, no matter how this vote goes. Secondly, with the options available to individuals to sell produce or any type of agricultural product, certainly we do have the farmer's market, but there are also other avenues, commercial properties that are available to anyone who would solely like to get a permit from the city. The problem wasn't only or just that there was only limited days. The issue with this individual was that he wanted to be able to sell the product on his own property. And again, the safety issue was a major factor why it was turned down at the Planning Commission.
Are there any further requests to speak? Alderperson Kubaschak, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess on this particular situation, I'm kind of torn a little bit. I love entrepreneurialism. I actually eat about 95% organic. I'm as close to eating vegan as you can get. If you subtract beer, I drink a lot of beer. So, but it's a case where, although the statement was made, the city should be looking at avenues to, I guess, spur on business. We also got to look at other things too. We also got to understand that residential areas are zoned residentially for purposes that people want to live there, have a family there, and don't want to have certain traffic or more traffic than there is normally in a residential area. So with that said, I love business. I love encouraging it. I love what we could do. But on the other hand, as an organization, we have to respect zoning, and we have to also respect the sanctity of the residential area that it is. I understand that there are certain businesses that are on Baker, but if it's a case where safety has been talked about, I think that that's kind of paramount. So right now, as we sit, I would be in the stance of voting against it unless I heard further, discussion that would encourage me to approve this. Right now, the current ordinance is the current ordinance for a reason. It's because it has been there for whatever reason. It was decided at one time, and I need superseding evidence to change that at this point. Now, this is something that we can change at any time in the future, but right now, again, unless I don't have further discussion that would encourage me to approve this, I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Alderperson Zerflu, I'm going to go to you next, and then I'm going to go to city staff.
I guess I'm a little torn also. One thing I did think of was, I guess, is there really any difference than someone having a garage sale or something like that? And it probably is, because that's usually a way shorter term. And the only question I had, and I don't know if you were going to cover this, Mayor, but can a permit be denied if someone comes and it's on a busy road where people might be stopping, like Baker is? Can you say, no, we can't issue a permit, or do you pretty much have to issue the permit?
My understanding is if it meets the criteria, it must be issued, but I'm going to go to city staff to weigh in on the answer and then weigh in on some further thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, to answer your question, Alderman Zerflu, the way it is phrased is as long as they meet the standards within the ordinance, they would be issued a permit, and there would be no interaction from the neighbors or anything like that if it was of concern, again, assuming that it meets the conditions of found in the recommended ordinance. I will note that this is the second draft of the ordinance. The first ordinance was very less restrictive. It was basically just exempting them from needing to get any type of permit. They could just do it. That was not looked favorably upon by the Plan Commission after the public hearing, so they had directed staff to come up with something with more restrictions. So that's how the ordinance that is before you was developed. Ultimately, staff, although we developed it, the ordinance, and I'm technically the applicant on it, it's one that I'm still not recommending approval on. Some of the reasons have been discussed, but safety is somewhat of a concern depending on the location. Enforcement is a concern. You mentioned garage sales. We do have regulations on garage sales limiting them currently to 14 days per year, but that can be very difficult to enforce because how do you keep an eye on every residential person in the entire city and how many days they may or may not be selling things? So this just would add an additional item that we'd have to be monitoring, how long it's out there. Are they taking it, putting it up, taking it down when they say they are? And then the other thing I would note is that, in a way, I'm concerned about it being a slippery slope. Now it's produce sales, so what prevents a neighbor from looking at that and saying, well, I make wooden windmills as a hobby and I want to sell them in my yard. Why can't I sell those? And then do we amend the ordinance to allow additional retail? So it's more that slow encroachment of commercial and residential areas that I think, for me personally, is the bigger concern. Maybe I'm just being overly sensitive, or maybe looking at the worst case scenario, but that's why we recommended what we did.
Thank you. Are there any further requests to speak? Alderperson Coth, you're next.
I just had a question for Mr. Arnold. Have you read this ordinance? Are you happy with it as it is?
I did review the ordinance, and I am completely satisfied as it's written. I think it regulates and keeps everything pretty tied down. The initial ordinance amendment that was presented to the Planning Commission was simply exempting any produce sales by a city resident, so it was such a broad spectrum amendment. And Mr. Teagan wrote up a very nice, I thought, ordinance that is pretty restrictive as far as the permit issuing and permit allowance. If you don't mind, Mr. Coth, while I have the microphone, just en re to the Baker Drive busyness, it is a 25-mile-per-hour zone. It's been approximately 4 seasons that I've sold pumpkins from my residence, and not one time has there ever been concern of safety, nor has there any motor vehicle accidents or anything of that sort. Baker Street is a no parking zone, so all of the traffic will turn on to 13th Street. Other than that, that is all.
Mr. Arnold, I also did want to ask you in regards to this ordinance. You said you took a look at it on Section 3, Para 9, Para E. There is a restriction that it has to be grown on the property.
The way it's stated is property owned by the resident. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the property that I grow the pumpkins on, if you would consider rent from my father. And I guess definition to me, renting is temporary ownership of the property.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you were okay with that.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody on the council?
Alderperson Kellogg, you're next.
My concern is basically what Adam stated, where if you approve this, and I amend you, I think it's great that you have that as a family project with your kids, and it's a good learning experience. But I think it's a slippery slope. And what other situations will we accept or not accept, or neighborhoods get upset because of the traffic in that area? They want a quiet neighborhood, and all of a sudden, and I think there's enough opportunities along A Street that some of the stores that you go down there and you see produce along A Street and some other locations that could be possible. But I'm concerned that, although I commend you, I compliment you on what you're doing with your kids and the project, I just think I have to say no, because I think it opens up Pandora's box. And where do you stop? And who do you say no to at another time? So I respect your comments and your situation.
Alderperson Coth, you're next.
All right. I, in my own opinion, want to address the safety concern on this. I go out through town, walk, drive around. I've seen garage sales where they were very popular garage sales, and you've had vehicles parked on both sides of the street where you can only get one vehicle down the street because you have, like I said, vehicles both sides of the street. And yet somehow it works. Mr. Arnold's been selling pumpkins for 4 years, and there hasn't been an accident, because I do think people are responsible enough in most applications to use common sense, and Baker Street is posted no parking, that they are gonna ensure that they take the safe and proper actions. I mean, personally, if we talk about somebody selling stuff, in my own opinion, I think one of the biggest safety concerns that isn't regulated anywhere is Black Friday. You have people getting up at 3 in the morning, killing each other and tripping over each other to go get the latest Christmas gadget. And no one's ever addressed that. Years ago, there was a Walmart worker in upstate New York killed on Black Friday because he was trampled to death trying to protect a pregnant woman. I know it's kind of an apples and oranges comparison, but I mean, if we're doing this in the name of safety, what about everything else that we can see in our day-to-day lives that aren't safe? I mean, selling pumpkins is certainly a little more easygoing than holding a Black Friday sale where you have hundreds of people lining up outside a store ready to trample over each other. I don't think I've ever seen that on 13th and Baker there, where you have 100 cars lined up to get a pumpkin.
Alderperson Verkey, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. And while I appreciate your comments, Alderman Coth, sometimes common sense is in a sparse commodity. I've already seen semis parked in the median in front of McDonald's with their four-ways on while the driver goes in and gets their coffee. So common sense is not always used. As far as the, relationship to garage sales, relationships to Tupperware and Amway and stuff like that, people are getting out of their vehicles and they're going and purchasing a product in the garage, not on the curb, right? And if you say it's okay for young kids to pick out their jack-o'-lanterns, or their pumpkins right next to the curb, next to Baker, that to me is a little bit of a safety concern. I see the same issue. We start selling Christmas trees on private property, another agricultural product. Pretty soon we'll be having hemp and everything else. So I really think commercial property, there's enough commercial property, even vacant commercial property, 3 blocks from this particular residence that are available to sell his product. I think it's also on an honor system, this particular individual. I'm sure other residences would not be on an honor system. It would be where they would be out there kind of like a lemonade stand type thing. But again, as Adam addressed too, with selling windmills, or a gentleman with a welder and a chop saw might want to start building trailers and 2-wheel trailers or something like that and sell them on his curbside too. So certainly it's more than just pumpkins.
Are there any further requests to speak? Seeing no further requests to speak, the motion is to approve the ordinance as presented in its first reading. Oh, okay. All right. But my answer is I voiced my concern at the Planning Commission level that I oppose this. I believe it is a slippery slope. I do believe the safety concerns outweigh the true benefits. I think it also creates a situation where folks that do honor or operate their businesses in a commercial setting, in a food stand basis, whether it's a produce stand along 8th Street or any other commercial areas that are identified. I think the farmers market is a narrow comparison because we do have a 4 days of farmers markets are offered throughout the city. And this is very different than a garage sale. We're talking a number of weeks of sales, and not just a 2 or 3 day event on a weekend or saddling a weekend in the summertime. Plus, we're dealing with youth oftentimes, and so I do believe that, unless there's a compromise that comes up, the final piece that I think Adam brought up at a previous discussion was, in a review of ordinances in other like communities, this doesn't exist. And I believe in good opportunities where we're going to set ourselves apart as a community in a positive way. I'm not so sure, I'm not convinced that this is a positive change to the ordinance to ultimately allow this. And I, again, respect the applicant and the work that's been gone into this and reviewing it. And it's not always the one circumstance, the requests that we're talking about, it's all the others that wouldn't necessarily comply or fit throughout the community. So I'm going to oppose this, and so therefore I'll allow the clerk to read the vote.
The motion fails, 4 ayes and 5 nays. There'll be a second reading of the ordinance at the February Common Council meeting.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for the discussion and debate on that. Item 7 under new business. Item C is a consider approval of the low bid of $2.5,008,752 and award the project contract to Myron Construction for the West Side Pumping Station Replacement Project. Said award will be contingent upon the city receiving Clean Water Fund loan for the project. See the bids attachment number 4.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid to Myron Construction for the West Side Pumping Station Replacement Project.
We have a motion by Zerflu and a second by Kellogg. Any discussion by staff? Is there any desire to discuss this on Joe, on either one of these two items?
I guess I could point out we did have 3 bids for this particular project, and the numbers from all 3 bidders indicated that they were really all bidding the same project, so that was encouraging. And staff does recommend approval of the low bid for this project.
Not sure what's going on there. All right, very good. City clerks or city attorneys just clarifying something on the agenda item, so I think we're all squared related to the Clean Water Fund loan. Okay, are there any requests to speak? Motion is to approve. See no requests to speak. Please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 7D is consider approval of the low bid of $3,996,882 for the base bid, with $1,246,625 for the alternative bid number 1, and the award of the project contract to A1 Excavating for the West Side Pumping Station Force Main Replacement Project. Said award would be contingent upon the city receiving a Clean Water Fund loan for the project. See the bids attachment number 5. A motion to approve by Kellogg. Is there a second? Second by Dolan. Is there an award for the, okay, there's not an award for that. Okay. I see, okay. That decision can be made, okay, very good. Are there any requests to speak? Seeing no requests to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 7E is consider approval of my appointment of Dawn Urban to the position of Human Resources Director. I give a little bit of background in my report. We've also got our Human Resource Pro in the room, Mary Manley, who was enlisted to assist the city through the recruitment process. Mary, was there any reason you wanted to speak on this item at all? Okay. If there's questions at all, Mary assisted with the the screening of all the applicants through the process and coordinating the interviews and preparing us all for the assessment that we went through. And so I want to thank Mary for her assistance through that process as well. It was very valuable. Alderpersons, what are your wishes regarding that item?
Make a motion to approve hiring Dawn Urban.
We have a motion to approve by Todd Furkey. Is there a second? Alderperson Koth. Are there any questions or discussion on that item? Alderperson Kubaschak, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I want to, sometimes we don't get around to saying thank you. And I know during this process, although I wasn't a major part of it, there was, I was really concerned about the timeline that was presented, and I was pretty strong with Sue about getting it done by a certain deadline, and we did. It was accomplished, and I think that we've got the right person for the position. And like I said, what I want to do is give a thank you to Sue, because she did work very hard, obviously, in both jobs, working as HR as well as her full-time position as city attorney. So that's all I got to say with it.
Thank you. Are there further requests to speak? Seeing no further requests to speak or any discussion, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 8 is a report of the planning. Oh, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you, Alderperson Kubaschak, but I wanted to recognize Mary. As she gets up to leave here, she really spearheaded the recruitment process, the entire process, and she did an excellent job, and we're really happy that we got her to work with us for a while. She's going to be wrapping up in the next week or so, and I really can't express enough my appreciation for everything you've done and gotten us to this point, so thank you very much.
She can officially join her husband in his retirement, who just acknowledged it yesterday over at the county. Thanks again, Mary. Item 8, report of the Planning Commission meeting held on January 8th. The Planning Commission met at 4 p.m. on January 8th, 2018 in the first floor conference room at City Hall. Members present included myself, Shane Burkhart, Fran Aaron, Joe Terry, Lee Tao, and Alderperson Todd Furkey. List of others in attendance is on file in the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4 p.m. Approval of the reports. Item 1 is approval of the reports from the December 11th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. There was a motion and a second to approve the report, and that motion carried unanimously. Item 2, maps and plats received. Item A, extraterritorial survey map from Michael and Heather Lisitza, the town of Grand Rapids, was reviewed. There was a motion and a second to approve the extraterritorial survey map from Michael and Heather Lisitza, the town of Grand Rapids, and that motion carried unanimously. Item 3 was a public hearing on Plan 171010, Aspirus Riverview Hospital Association. The applicant is requesting an amendment to an existing planned unit development within the R2 one-family and two-family residential district to add additional properties to allow the construction of a new ambulance garage at 432 Dewey Street. The original planned unit development contains the properties commonly known as 410 and 420 Dewey Street, 1041 and 1121 Hill Street, and 810 4th Street South, and 811 and 921 3rd Street South. The amendment proposes to add the properties commonly known as 432 Dewey Street to the district. Public hearing was opened at 4:07 p.m. Speaking in favor was Jeff Holzhauer from Epstein Ullin Architects, and an overview of the request was presented by the Community and Economic Development Director, Adam Tagan. Speaking against was Alderperson Scott Kellogg, concerned about ambulances making noise backing into the garage. Several nearby residents expressed concerns about the uncertainty surrounding the future plans and activities of the hospital, but not have any specific concerns related to the PUD request. A letter from Cindy McCarthy Lucarelli, the property owner of 831 4th Street South, was accepted and is attached to the minutes. Public hearing was closed at 4:45 p.m. Item 4 was action on Plan 171010, Aspirus Riverview Hospital Association, plan unit development in the R2 one-family and two-family residential district. There was an motion and a second to approve the request, subject to the attached 7 conditions recommended by staff, with the addition that accommodations be made so that ambulances accessing the proposed ambulance garage will not sound a horn or alarm when entering, and that motion carried unanimously. Item 5 was a review of communication from the Village of Port Edwards regarding their official zoning map. The commission reviewed the communication from the Village of Port Edwards relating to their official zoning map, and no action was taken. Item 6 was adjournment. Motion and a second to adjourn, and that motion carried unanimously, and the meeting adjourned at 4:59 p.m. Alderpersons, what are your wishes regarding item number 8? Motion to accept by Kellogg. Is there a second? Second by Ferkey. I head into discussion. Are there any requests to speak? Alderperson Realm, you're first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just, I guess, a couple comments. On the ambulance garage, nothing to, that I'm going to debate about really or anything, but I did have a call the other evening about it, and I did go to I was at the Planning Commission. I did go over to the hospital for their, whatever evening that was when they had the neighborhood over to present the case too, but I had a call, and it was, I guess what I haven't heard is how many runs or transfers are they anticipating of having. It's going to be, this garage is going to be manned 24/7, so obviously there must be there is, not must be, anticipated to have several runs, I would think a day, to man this 24/7. And it's in here that to keep it quiet as far as ambulances, as far as backing up and that, which is good for the neighborhood. But just wondering how many runs are we really looking at of this going in? And I guess another question that has come up is, and I think was looked at, I guess they had looked at actually starting this maybe sooner than now even, is what's the time frame of this actually getting up and going? I guess could we be made aware of that, or the neighbors be made aware of that? And I guess I was one of the ones that at the meetings that were with Enterprise, the size, the neighbors, as I been around through this the expansions that have gone on in this area neighborhood for a number of years, I think since 2003 and 7 and 13 and whatever, and now you can see, rightly so, I think you can see is why the neighbors are concerned of what's happening next as it keeps encroaching into their neighborhood. And I think if you go look back at a map, you can see houses that are missing from that neighborhood because of how it's encroached out into, and it still is a fine-looking neighborhood, but houses are missing that were once there. And so that's why these neighbors have continued to, maybe some have looked that they've fought too hard or raised too big a stink every time this comes up, or why are you doing it again, and that type of stuff. And here's just a ambulance garage, why are you doing it this time? But it's just these one things after another over the last, like I said, I think from 2003 up till now. This is about the 4th time. And as it was brought up, this is the second phase of Phase 3, but yet nobody knows, including the hospital, won't say what Phase 3 is. And what gets me is an organization the size of this must know what Phase 3 is. Or why do you say there is a Phase 3? So, all the horses aren't getting put in front of the cart. And that's why, I've been with these neighbors, I guess, since way back when this all started, or just about. I had been an alderman before that. It wasn't back in 2003, but I did come back on board again. But hopefully you can all take into consideration of why they are leery of every time they see something come up of what's going on, what's next, and why they do have, they're leery of, are they being told the truth? They're leery of that they're not being told all of the truth. They hear a story, but they're leery that there's a hidden something behind that last door. So that's, you know, I contemplated what to say tonight, if anything to say tonight, but they did have a call on, you know, the, of this being put in, it's 24/7 operation, to put that in, and how many runs to justify to have that, and it just, I guess, once started talking about that, they just, I guess, evolved into this, but it's not to change, because that won't change, it's not going to change, but I guess to make the rest of the council aware of, I think, what has gone on in the past, you know, 14, 15 years going on now of continually, and you know, and again, it's nothing against the hospital, but it's just because nobody wants, you know, even the neighbors aren't speaking necessarily bad about the hospital, but they would like to see more of a long-range plan to plan themselves to plan of what there is. So, so that's all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Doug, did you want to address any of the, maybe the 2 points that were raised, I think, related to activity levels and volume of, thank you. Alderperson Kellogg, you're next.
I wanted to thank Tom for his comments. You're going to hear from this neighborhood concerns about the hospital. They welcome the hospital. There's over 700 employees at that hospital, and it's a major aspect of our city. But they raised questions, for example, why can't an addition be placed out north of Aspirus Clinic rather than an immediate neighborhood? They raised questions like any expansion. What about a helicopter pad? Right now they use the airport, and if they were to expand, do they have to have a helicopter pad? I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, and so when you're living 300 feet away from that location and not knowing what's down the road, you can, and it's a beautiful neighborhood, you can understand why there's anxiety on the part of these people. So I just want to echo Tom and think that he said that, but I think you'll hear concerns from the neighborhood so that they want everything transparent and they want everything above board and out in the open. So I just want to echo that.
Great. Are there any other requests to speak? See no further requests to speak. Please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Item number 9, the Standing Council Committee reports. Item A is a report of the Finance and Property Committee meeting held on January 9th.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 2 reports tonight. The Finance and Property Committee met at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 9th, 2018 in the first floor conference room at City Hall. All members were present. A list of others attending is on file in the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 5 p.m. Agenda item number 2 is consider for approval revisions to the grant management policy. There was a motion and a second to approve revisions to the grant management policy. Motion carried unanimously. The revised policy is attached to this report or on file in the clerk's office. Item number 3, discuss updates on Whitterfield Aquatic Center project schedule, proposed budget, and financing. Mayor Vruwink presented updates on the Whitterfield Aquatic Center project schedule, proposed budget, and financing. Item number 4, beverage operator license applications. There was a motion and a second to approve the beverage operator license applications as presented. Motion carried unanimously. The operator licenses that were approved are on file in the clerk's office. Agenda item number 5, audit of the bills. There was a motion and a second to approve check numbers 70362 through 70613 and manual check numbers 99510 through 99526. That motion carried unanimously. Agenda item number 6 was set the next meeting date. The next regular meeting of the Finance and Property Committee will be held on February 6th at 5 p.m. Agenda item number 7, in open session, the committee will vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. There was a motion and a second to go into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes. A roll call vote was taken. All members responded in the affirmative. Motion carried. Sub A, in closed session, the committee will discuss negotiations and strategy regarding a development agreement with the Southwood County YMCA. In closed session, the committee discussed negotiations and strategy regarding a development agreement with Southwood County YMCA. Sub B, the committee may return to open session and take action or make recommendations regarding a development agreement with the Southwood County YMCA or may adjourn in closed session. There was a motion and a second to adjourn in closed session. That motion carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned in closed session at 6:06 p.m. And with that, I look for adoption of the report.
A motion to approve by Zerflu. Is there a second? Second by Hepp. Any discussion on the report? See no request to speak. Please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 9B is a report of the Finance and Property Committee meeting held on January 16th.
The Finance and Property Committee again met at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 16th, 2018 in the first floor conference room at City Hall. All committee members were present. Also in attendance were Joe Eichstead and Melissa Sigler from the Wisconsin Rapids Daily Tribune. The meeting was called to order at 5:30. Agenda item number 2. In open session, the committee will vote to go into closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. There was a motion and a second to go into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes. A roll call vote was taken. All members voted in the affirmative. Motion carried. Sub A, in closed session, the committee will discuss negotiations and offers for acquisition of property along East Grand Avenue from 3rd Street South to 8th Street South as part of the Wisconsin DOT Project 6999-07-19. In closed session, the committee discussed negotiations and offers for acquisition of property along East Grand Avenue as part of the Wisconsin DOT Project 6999-07-19. Sub B, the committee may return to open session and take action or make recommendations regarding item 2A. There was a motion and a second to return to open session. That motion carried unanimously. In open session, there was a motion and a second to approve the offers for acquisition of property along East Grand Avenue as part of the Wisconsin DOT Project 6999-07-19 to stay within the budgeted amount of $131,873. That motion carried unanimously. Item number 3 was adjournment. Motion is second to adjourn. Motion carried unanimously, and the meeting adjourned at 5:50 PM. And I'll make a motion to approve the minutes just with the correction of the dates on the top. Understandable.
Got a motion to approve, is there a second? Second by Ferkey with the modifications that were discussed. Alderperson Dolan, you're first.
He changed the dates. I'd like to change just for point of order, it was moved by Dolan and seconded by Hepp, I believe.
Oh, okay.
On the bottom there. I'm a multitasker, but not that good.
All right. Are there any other discussion items? Seeing no requests to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 9C is a report of the Public Works Committee meeting held on January 2nd. Alderperson Rayom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Works Committee met at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018, in the first floor conference room at City Hall. All members were present. A list of all others attending is on file in the clerk's office. Item 1, review the DPW report. The report was reviewed. The 2017 Public Works projects were highlighted. I'll just say that we went over the entire report. It was quite enlightening that evening. Item 2, we review and consider approval of the relocation order and right-of-way plat for the Wisconsin DOT project 6999-07-19 East Grand Avenue project from 3rd Street South to 8th Street South. It was moved and seconded to approve the relocation order and right-of-way plat for the Wisconsin DOT project 6999-07-19 East Grand Avenue from 3rd Street South to 8th Street South. The motion carried unanimously. Item 3, review request by the Wisconsin Rapids School District to make safety and traffic improvements on 16th Street South adjacent to Lincoln High School as follows. A, to modify the lane markings and signage on 16th Street South adjacent to Lincoln High School, and B, to remove parking along the east side of 16th Street South from East Riverview Expressway to 120 feet south of Pepper Avenue. It was moved by Kellogg, seconded by Coth, to approve the request by the Wisconsin Rapids Public School District to make safety and traffic improvements on 16th Street South adjacent to Lincoln High School as follows. Modifying lane markings and signage on 16th Street South adjacent to Lincoln High School and removing parking along the east side of 16th Street South from East Riverview Expressway to 120 feet south of Pepper Avenue. The motion carried unanimously. Item 4, review and consider approval of preliminary resolution for municipal improvements including concrete sidewalk, concrete driveway approach, and curb and gutter on 10th Street South between Grove Avenue to 360 feet north of Wood Avenue, the east side, Wood Avenue between 10th Street South and 12th Street South, the north side, 12th Street South between Wood Avenue and River Run Drive, the west side, and River Run Drive between 12th Street South and 230 feet east of 12th Street South, the south side. It was moved by Cole, seconded by Kellogg, to approve a preliminary resolution for municipal improvements of including concrete sidewalk, concrete driveway approach, sidewalk, curb and gutter on the locations that I mentioned above, and the motion carried unanimously. Item 5, review and consider approval of preliminary resolutions for municipal improvements including sanitary and water leads, curb and gutter, sidewalk, permanent street surfacing, and concrete driveway approaches on A, High Street between 7th Avenue North and 10th Avenue North, B, High Street between 12th Avenue North and 17th Avenue North, C, East Grand Avenue between 3rd Street South and 8th Street South, D, East Grand Avenue between Grand Avenue Bridge and 3rd Street South. 7th 7th Street South between East Grand Avenue and Oak Street. F, Van Buren Street between 8th Avenue North and 10th Avenue North. It was moved by Kellogg, seconded by Coth, to approve of preliminary resolutions for municipal improvements, including sanitary and water leads, curb and gutter, sidewalk, permanent street surfacing, and concrete driveway approaches on High Street between 7th Avenue North and 10th Avenue North, High Street between 12th Avenue North and 17th Avenue North, East Grand Avenue between 3rd Street South and 8th Street South, East Grand Avenue between Grand Avenue Bridge and 3rd Street, 7th Street South between 8th Grand Avenue and Oak Street, and Van Buren Street between 8th Avenue North and 10th Street North. The motion carried unanimously. Item 6, review correction of the ordinance needed to place the traffic stand along the north side of West Grand Avenue, immediately west of 1st Avenue South. It was moved by Cole, seconded by Rayom, to approve a correction of the ordinance needed to place the traffic stand along the north side of West Grand Avenue, immediately west of 1st Avenue South. The motion carried unanimously. Item 7, review the referral list. Every item on the referral list was reviewed. Items number 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 13, and 14 were removed. Item 8 was to adjourn. Was moved by Cole, seconded by Kellogg to adjourn. The motion carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned at 6:49 p.m. And with that, Your Honor, I move for adoption of the report.
A motion to approve by Rayom. Is there a second? Second by Zerflu. Are there any requests to speak? Seeing no requests to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 9D is a report of the Human Resources Committee meeting held on January 2nd. Alderperson Furkey.
Thank you, Mayor. We're getting there here. The Human Resources Committee met at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd in the 3rd floor conference room at City Hall. All members were present. Also present were Sue Schill, Mary Manley, Mayor Vrewink, Paul Shabilsky, and Tom Lux. Item number 1, the meeting was called to order by Chairperson Todd Furkey at 4 p.m. Item number 2, consider approval of revisions to the Human Resources Policy and Procedures telephone policy to provide that the monthly cell phone stipends be paid monthly rather than in a lump sum January of each year. It was moved by Kellogg and seconded by Kubasak to approve revisiting the Human Resources Policy and Procedures telephone policy. To provide that cell phone stipends be paid monthly rather than in a lump sum in January of each year. The motion carried unanimously. See attached revised telephones policy. Item number 3, the committee may vote to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes, Section 19.85, Para 1, Para C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. It was moved by Furkey and seconded by Kellogg to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, Para 1, Para C. That motion carried unanimously. A roll call vote was taken. Item A, in closed session, the committee will consider employment and compensation for a candidate who is tentatively recommended by Mayor Vrewink to be appointed to the Human Resources Director position. In closed session, the committee considered employment and compensation for a candidate who is tentatively recommended by Mayor Vrewink to be appointed to the Human Resources Director position. Item B, the committee may vote to go into open session. It was moved by Ferkey and seconded by Kubasak to go into open session. That motion carried unanimously. Item number 4, in open session, the committee may vote to take action on compensation for a candidate for the Human Resources Director position and may recommend approval of Mayor Brewing's appointment to the Human Resources Director position. It was moved by Kubasak and seconded by Ferkey to approve Mayor Brewing's appointment of Dawn Urban to the position of Human Resources Director with a compensation rate at grade 18, step 7. That would be $89,333, subject to post offers testing and full common council approval. That motion carried unanimously. Item number 5 was adjournment. It was moved by Kubasak and seconded by Kellogg to adjourn. That motion carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned at 4:37 p.m. With that, I would move for adoption.
Motion to approve by Ferkey and a second by Kubaschak. Is there any request to speak or any discussion on the report? Seeing no request to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 10, miscellaneous reports. Item 1, the Southwood County Airport Commission meeting held on December 7th. Item 2, the Police and Fire Commission meeting held on December 13th and January 10th. Item 3, the Wisconsin Rapids Fire Department monthly report for December. Item 4, the Waterworks and Lighting Commission meetings held on December 8th and December 13th. And item 5, the Wastewater Treatment Commission meetings held on December 6th and January 3rd. Alderpersons, what are your wishes regarding those items?
Make a motion to accept the balance of the reports.
We have a motion by Koth. Is there a second? Second by Hepp. Any discussion on the reports? Seeing no request to speak, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
Item 11, referral of communications to committees. Alderpersons are you're first.
I was contacted by a county board member from the Vesper area who has been receiving complaints and usual run-of-the-mill about trains blocking the crossings for excessive period of time at, you know, when businesses get out and everything. And I do know that there is a line item in the budget to kind of look into that. So I guess I don't know if this needs to go to any particular committee, but I would like to be part of any discussion. I know there's limitations on what we can do, being that they're federally regulated, but just to throw that out there, I'd like to be included on anything the city plans to do to address that.
Sure will. There's actually been a committee meeting, I believe, of the Public Safety Committee, I think at the county level, that was scheduled today on the 12th of February. Out in Vesper on the discussion, so I'll send some information out on that. I got a call from the Elder Zerflu today informing me of that meeting. So Alderperson Ferkey, you're next. Oops, sorry, Kellogg might have been, but we'll get whichever order there on that. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. I really have to compliment Sue Schill, as we've all mentioned tonight. She did a yeoman's job. For 6 months, we haven't had a director of human resources, plus for several of those 6 months, we didn't have a benefit coordinator. And I like to have the Human Resource Committee consider a stipend for Sue because she went above and beyond the typical hours of an attorney to fulfill those obligations, and she did a wonderful job. So I like to have that referred to the Human Resource Committee.
Alderperson Ferkey, you're next.
Thank you. First off, Mayor, I would like to apologize to you and to the council tonight on the ordinance reading for sale of agricultural products in residential property. I was late to vote, and in my confusion, I voted in the affirmative.
Oh.
And I apologize to you.
Okay.
You had to break a tie. It turned out the way I preferred it to turn out, but again, it wasn't supposed to go to a tie vote or to you.
Thanks for the clarification on that. I was curious to know where the vote shook out, so I was going to check that tomorrow. Alderperson Kubitschek, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a referral as much as I've got a question on how the referral process works. Last month, I was involved in bringing forth the second out of 2 referrals since I've been on the council for less than a year, whatever it was, since April. And both times, they've been concerns, resident concerns, constituent concerns, and both times they've been blocked. I guess I just want to know what I need to do to have the committee hear these. And the second one, the one that was just last month, was a driveway issue. The resident was interested in widening the driveway at the curb, and it's a case where I looked into the code, and I've got, if anybody wants a copy, I made a bunch of copies here, but it explicitly says driveways, vacancies to, or variances to driveway opening size regulations shall be referred to the Public Works Committee. And I'm not suggesting that there's any merit to this, but I would like to have my constituents have their due process going in front of the Public Works Committee. I mean, it isn't so much the concern of these specific 2 different referrals that I brought forth, but now it is more concerning to me because if I'm a full city council member and I can't get a referral in front of a committee, how many residents and constituents have been blocked with any concerns that they've brought forth to this organization? So I don't know. That's what I'm reaching out to everybody. What the ordinance says is that we've got this ability to do this in this specific incidents, and I don't know. I please help me out. Thank you.
Alderperson Dolan, you're next.
I'm not going to help you out. I'll probably make it worse. But so I referred a couple things to Tom's committee a while back, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know. Just referring in a meeting like this, I've been in those meetings. That doesn't really do anything for me. So I wrote him a note and with the specifics, and I think that's the nice thing to do or the right thing to do. I don't know if you did that in this instance, but I can sit across here and refer stuff, but we miss things. So I prefer personally that you write a note to the committee member. Maybe that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but
Thank you.
makes sense to me. I don't know if Thad did that, so I'm just saying.
I think.
Yeah.
Thad's back on.
It is, yeah. Alderperson Kubitschek, you're
I
back
think
on there.
Thad's is back.
Yeah, just for clarification for Alderperson Dolan here, I did, the residents did send a formal request, and I know for a fact that the clerk received it in the mail and put it in the chairperson's mailbox because he sent me confirmation. And I even believe that the chairperson had that letter in hand at the last council meeting. So, and then much like the first referral that I had about 5-6 months ago with a completely different concern, there was even a petition that was submitted to the clerk's office with the resident's name and addresses on there. So again, this blows my mind how so. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderperson Dolan, did you have something?
But yeah, I just want to clarify. So I wasn't picking on that. I was just saying, yeah. So yeah, so we got to cooper that up a little bit because people need to be heard. Otherwise, they're going to be knocking our doors down, not knocking on them.
All right, I'd entertain a motion. See no further requests to speak. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Ferkey. Is there a second? Second by Zerflo. In favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for being here and have a good evening.